Aurion Resources is a gold exploration company. We're working in Finland. We've got multiple discoveries in progress. We have partnerships with or investments from 3 different major companies, B2 Gold, Kinross, and Newmont. I'll make some forward-looking statements today. So Aurion press released a discovery in 2017 of 500 large angular quartz boulders. They were gold rich. They were over 1 kilometer by 750 meters, and they averaged 25 grams per ton. Very reminiscent of the great outcropping discoveries in Timmins and Kirkland Lake just around the turn of the century in Canada. Now, it's extremely unusual to find large fragments of gold-rich quartz lying on the ground anywhere these days, and certainly thousands of them and over many linear kilometers, and indeed the discovery has now blossomed out to 8,500 samples over about 15 linear kilometers, and the average is 6 grams per ton. Really quite extraordinary. One of the reasons that this has occurred is that Finland practiced a state-driven model right up until they joined the European Union in 1995. And Udo Campo, the state mining company, was really only concerned with GDP-related minerals, copper, nickel, iron ore, that sort of thing. If they found gold and it wasn't associated with base metals, they would merely make note of it and put it in the databases. So if Lapland, which is a greenstone belt that looks very much like the Norsemen or the Abitibi, was in a country with a more mature gold mining or gold production industry, you would see this predictable pattern that you see on these top histograms, where you'd have a couple of mega deposits and 10 or 15 world-class deposits, and the frequency would increase as the ounces go down. But all Lapland has is Europe's largest gold mine in Kittilä. That's 8 million ounces in all categories, and it's mined by Agnico Eagle. One of the other reasons perhaps the Canadian junior community didn't make it to Finland is that we're at the Arctic Circle here. In Canada, that would be tundra, permafrost, incredibly remote and rugged conditions. Maybe $6 million a year to build a fly-in, fly-out camp and position diesel fuel, but we don't have that problem here. We fly commercial to Helsinki, commercial to Sodankala, drive on paved roads to within 8 kilometers of the discovery, and the original discovery is right off of that beautiful logging road. Now, by the time our founder, Mike Basha, came to Finland, it was 2014, and we've been through 3 years of a brutal bear market in natural resources, and particularly in the junior mining community. And he noticed that despite no modern history of gold exploration in Finland, really, gold had been found 40 times along this 125-kilometer long crustal scale fault called the Circa Shear Zone. To him, it looked very much like the Destor-Porcupine Fault or the Cadillac-Larder Lake Break. And those are big fault lines that are widely recognized as the controlling structure for gold mineralization at several of Canada's great historical gold camps. Here's what it looked like when we got here. A couple of bankrupt mines in the area and a few stray gold showings. After a long, tough market, it was really mostly tumbleweeds in this area. And since then, it's positively exploded. In 2016, we made our surface discovery at Ororusco. We made it in drilling in 2018. Along the way, we made a couple of other fantastic surface discoveries of thousands of samples over kilometers, averaging multiple grams. And this camp is just really, really burgeoning. I'll back up here and just talk a little bit about the area. It's a mining area. We're between the towns of Kittilä and Sodankala. Kittilä, most of the people who live there service the Kittilä gold mine, mined by Agnico Eagle. And Kevitsa, over there on the right hand of the slide, is one of the largest nickel mines in Europe, and our community, Sodankala, supplies a lot of the labor for that. If you look about 8 kilometers away to the east, you can see Sakati's amazing nickel-copper PGE discovery. They froze the resource a few years ago at 44 million tons of 2% copper and 4% nickel, but it's going to be a multiple of that size, and it's really not unusual for you to see 20 to 30 meters of 3.5% nickel, 3.5% copper, 4% nickel, 2.5 grams PGEs, a couple of grams of gold, a gram of gold sometimes. So what that tells you is there's a really deep mantle tapping structure in the area that's brought up all these primitive fluids, and they've traveled many kilometers through the mantle and crust and scavenged a lot of minerals along the way. And they didn't just deposit these fantastic base metal discoveries, but we now know lots and lots of gold. Ororusco is now discovered in drilling. It's generated scores of 100-gram meter intervals. It's really a beautiful discovery, but it was logistically complex. You can see that it's right in the heart of this rugged hill, and in order to get an angle on the mineralization, we did need helicopter support. Now, helicopters can fly at night, but it isn't really recommended that they do so while slinging a drill rig. So that made our exploration seasonal. It caused gaps in our press releases, and it contributed some volatility to our stock price. It didn't matter early on. We'd raised $24 million pre-drilling. $16 million of that came from Kinross at $2.30 a share. Goldcorp came to the property and was so excited they bought 5% of the company in the stock market at $2.80 a share. And we have a lot of sophisticated investors like Ross Beatty and Eric Sprott on the share register, and most of them are experienced and well-heeled and accustomed to the ups and downs of exploration campaigns. But in 2019 and 2020, we were hit with two additional major complications. The first was the pandemic, which pretty much everybody experienced. But the second one was more internal to our company. Our CEO lost his son, and we, unfortunately, in the interim, have lost him. So it was really just too risky for us to run helicopters during the COVID year of 2020. There are no fly rigs in Finland, and so we brought our equipment and our drillers in from Canada, and it just wasn't going to work without Mike at the wheel. So we put Ororusco to sleep that year and compromised and ran a scout drilling campaign on a couple of other opportunities, and we got some very promising results, but really no discoveries. As a result, our stock prices dwindled down. We're sort of an also-ran exploration now from having been a bit of a sensation on the market. It's very typical for exploration stories to yield billion-dollar valuations these days, and we think that that's still possible with Aurion. One of the reasons, of course, is our neighbor to the north, Rupert Resources, has made this fantastic discovery right on the border of our 30/70 joint venture with B2 Gold. Hickory is an amazing discovery, 4 million ounces at 2.5 grams in only 600 meters of strike length and 36,000 meters of drilling, 18 months, probably only $15 million spent. And all that delivered $1 billion of market cap to Rupert, which was a sub-$100 million company only a couple of months before they started press releasing these holes. It's really been an incredible wealth building experience. B2 reacted quickly. It took some time to get the permits, but we moved drills over to our end of the property, or that end of the property, as close as we could, really about a kilometer away. And we made our own discovery in the first hole, and the first 23 holes have generated Hickory-style mineralization. Out of the first 25 holes, 23 holes have generated Hickory-style mineralization, and that's 30 to 70 meters of 1.5 grams to 2 grams. We haven't hit the high grades that have driven most of Rupert's long 150-meter intervals yet, but we will target those in the next campaign. Now, it's better than that. All of this sits on a domain boundary which goes for 7 kilometers to our historical discovery, Kudevoma. This is why we bought the property from Dragon Mining. It's about 1,000 meters of strike length and has 600 or 700-gram drill intervals itself. For some reason, it was largely ignored by B2. But we wonder what's in this 7-kilometer gap between Hickory, Helmy, and now Kudevoma. We think it's just waiting to be discovered. For scale, you could fit 2.5 Malarctics in there, and the drilling results are comparable already. We've got 15 kilometers of that domain boundary on our sole owned property. Largely, we looked in the middle of those domain boundaries in the outcropping sediments because gold veins are coming right to surface, but now we're running basic till sampling to investigate the volcanics or the Hickory-like rocks on the other side of those boundaries, and those will be a target for our own drilling starting in late June. Domain boundaries yield great discoveries. That's the LP fault zone after 100 years of mining and exploration in Red Lake. Fantastic $2 billion discovery by Great Bear. So we're really excited about what could come out of this. Now let's step back and look at the broader context here. Mining is cyclical. Exploration is super cyclical. We're in another bear market, I think 350 days and counting. So why do we invest in this highly risky sector that produces lots of zeros and has lots of crappy management teams and agency conflicts? Well, discoveries, when you do get them, generate eye-watering returns. I had the pleasure of being involved with Aurion going from a 3-cent stock to a $3 stock, and I've watched Rupert with pleasure go from an 80-cent stock to a $6 stock, and those gains are there to stay. If you don't believe me, ask the Lundin family. This is a chart of Aurion alongside Filo mining from 2017 until today. And you can see for 5 years we traveled a very similar path until, of course, they hit 860 meters of 1.5% copper in a big step-out hole, and now you've had a game-changing change in their valuation. And what's the difference, aside from a couple of Lundins? The fact that we're in Finland and not Argentina. Probably time. Cyprus Amax had this property in 1998. The Lundins took it over in 2002. It's had lots of drilling. It had a resource on it and a study. But the exploration just took decades. And sometimes that's the way it works. Other reasons you may wish to be buying discovery companies. Well, we often criticize major producers because they pay lots for world-class deposits at the top of markets, and then they spit them out at the bottom and take large write-downs. So why do they acquire at all? Well, they have to. It's a necessity. Here's 6 years in the average life of the mining industry. You can see 21 separate events there, either an earnings write-down or a permit revocation or a mill fire or a resource restatement. $22 billion of cumulative losses in market cap within a week of those press releases being issued by those companies. Mining is a very tough business. There's IAMGOLD and their journey to their CapEx blowout. It's really, really difficult. And the irony, of course, is that they weren't standing still during this period. During the same 6 years, $37 billion worth of deals, $580 million on average. All the light green bars there are junior companies. So despite all of this consumption, all of this acquisition, the business has still struggled. And that's just the nature of being in the extractive industry. Now, for an industry that often burns more calories just eating than it can consume in a single meal, what's the antidote? Well, Mike Basha thought that it was new ideas and unconventional thinking and big ideas. He was willing to go to places like Mexico and the dangerous areas, Morocco or India, but he settled on Finland because of this really interesting anomaly in gold exploration, that there had really been none and that this greenstone belt looked so much like the Abitibi. And I think I count at least 4 significant discoveries emerging on this slide alone in this area. It's likely that Lapland will develop like the Abitibi did at the turn of the last century. We're mining millions of ounces of gold and millions of pounds of nickel and copper out of the Abitibi these days. But so many great camps have already come and gone. Think about cobalt. It was the most prolific silver producer at the turn of the last century. The copper mines on the other side of Lake Superior in Michigan, absolute jewel boxes. They've come and gone. And after 100 years, they made this fantastic discovery in Red Lake and generated $2 billion worth of value. So all of this is in Lapland's future, and we think we have the best position, well, one of the best positions in the area. Thanks so much for your time.